तारखेचे आहे.
But the lawyers' conference.
Lawyers conference.
शुरू करो. Friends, this is probably the first time that the lawyers are holding a conference to discuss the problems of the society, and that too of the disadvantaged, deprived and downtrodden section of the society. I have addressed many conferences of lawyers, but they were all held to discuss their own problems. That is why I both congratulate and thank you and all the lawyers associations in Andhra Pradesh for having organized this conference to discuss problems of which they are a part, and without which they will have no existence. This is true of all the professions, whether it is doctors or engineers who exist because of the society. It is many times forgotten during the humdrum course of the day that we have people around us who have their problems which we can solve without much efforts or expenses on our part. It is sometimes not even realized that this society, which we always refer to as society, consists not only of the upper classes, the rich, the middle and high middle classes, or even the lower classes. It has its components who are backward, who are wallowing in poverty, who have been deprived for ages of all their bare necessities, even of their right to live. And they constitute a vast section of our society. if we include the lower middle classes in the backward classes, the deprived and disadvantaged classes, together they constitute no less than 80% of our population. And yet, we are not aware even of their existence. Whenever we talk of the problems of society, the only society that we have in our mind is the society around us, which consists of at least the lower middle classes, and then the other higher classes. That is why I am more than happy that you have assembled here to discuss their problems. More often than not, whenever the professionals assemble, they discuss their own problems. You are not an exception. You talk of arrears of litigation, that is your main problem. And wherever you go, you have this subject on your agenda. But probably you know, and if you don't know, let me remind you of the fact that the present arrears of litigation is of those who can come to the court. They constitute hardly 20% of the society. The 80% of the society is not even aware of its rights. And if they are, poverty and distance keeps them away from the present court system. Just imagine if the present arrears in all courts, from magisterial to the Supreme Court, are about 3 crores or so, and they are of 20% of the population. What would happen if all 100% of the population comes to the court? Have you got any solution for it? The solution you try to search is always in law and the procedures. But you don't go to the root of the disputes, whether they are civil, criminal, constitutional, domestic violence, familial matters, industrial, consumers court, and so on and so forth. We don't search for the causes which give birth to the cases. And of course, you never take into consideration the society of the deprived, which is always marginalized because it is out of your mind and therefore it is out of your sight. In fact, this major section of the society is not in mind of many. Whether it is planning for development and progress, whether it is education, health, right to live, right to shelter, right to food, they are never taken into consideration. That is how our planning has been going on for the last 63 years, 66 years after independence and 63 years after we accepted and brought into force our constitution, the fundamental law of the land. You, as lawyers, are looked to by the society not only as an educated section, but also as those who are adept in law to find out the legal solutions to the problems of this section of the society. You are supposed to examine. If you have not done so far, kindly start doing it. You are supposed to examine their grievances, the causes of their grievances, and the legal solutions to their problems. It is no use looking back and regretting what you have not done. There is a future which is timeless before you. If you have not done something in the past, you will recompensate it. Now we double the vigor for your omission. You can help this section both in court as well as in outside the court. After examining their problems, you can advise them, you can guide them, you can fight their cases in court. Not only that, but you can file cases on their behalf in courts. You have to take the initiative and give the lead. And that is what this section of the society looks to you for. Will you rise to the occasion? Outside the court also, you can help this section. As usual, you can guide them in law. You can also tell them the legal means by which they can fight their issues, fight their causes outside the court if it is not possible to get them relief from the court. On occasions, you can also join their agitations. You must remember that all that you have to do is to spare time. Nobody wants you to sacrifice your practice. Nobody wants you to go to jail. That is just not necessary. Today, when our Constitution has bestowed on every citizen the democratic rights of freedom of speech and expression, of peaceful assembly, of forming organizations to voice their grievances. Every citizen has a right not only to represent in writing to the authorities about their problems, but also to hold public meetings, to hold rallies, to take out processions, to resort to satyagraha. These are the democratic rights given to us by our Constitution. And you can guide your unfortunate brethren about their legal rights, democratic rights, the constitutional rights which are given by the Constitution, and how to organize non-violent, peaceful agitation and struggle to get justice. This at least you can do and help your brothers and sisters in getting them their due justice. In this connection, let me remind you that your predecessors in profession in the past, during the freedom struggle, as well as struggle for social and religious reforms, had sacrificed everything, not only their practice, but their property and their lives also. That is how we have won the freedom. That is how we see some social reforms and religious reforms today, some of which are incorporated in our Constitution. They have become law. We have got freedom. Today nobody asks you to do what they did. There is no need, because the Constitution has given you many of those things for which you are aspiring. But what has happened? We have got Swaraj. We have to shape it into Suraj. There is freedom for some. We have to convert it into freedom for all. That requires legal acumen, legal guidance and assistance, therefore, from your legal community. Will you do it? Can you say that you will not do it? Remember that you are going to fight for this neglected section of the society, which is wallowing in poverty and misery, in spite of 63 years after the adoption of the Constitution, in spite of the rights which are enumerated in the Constitution. They are not implemented as far as this section is concerned. The upper classes, they were always happy. They were happy during the British regime. They are more happy today. For all those rights which are given by the Constitution are being utilized by them for themselves. And what is worse, at the expense of the other section of the society. You have therefore to take cudgels on their behalf and help them implement the Constitution for them, for whom it is meant. In fact, when the Constitution was drafted, the framers of the Constitution had this neglected section in mind. That is why they have not only given the fundamental rights, which contain some of the precious human rights, but also assured them that they will build a society based on equality and social justice. They will eradicate poverty, unemployment. They will give shelter, take care of the health of everybody. And what is more, they will enable every individual, man or woman, rich or not rich, to live with dignity. And dignity does not mean mere right to food or right to shelter. It means all the human rights. Right to adequate education, right to proper health care, right to decent shelter, and right to decent living, and therefore a decent standard of living. Have they got it? On the other hand, we find that even after independence and even after the acceptance of the Constitution, they are more impoverished today. They are living a life of not only indignity, but also an insulting dignity, if at all you call it dignity. On the other hand, the rich have become filthy rich, while impoverishing more and more this section of society, and what is worse, deeper and deeper in poverty. I would therefore request you on this occasion to rise to the occasion. It is here that you have to fulfill your role. Your predecessors brought freedom. Your predecessors brought constitution. Your task now is to convert this freedom for all, and particularly the downtrodden section of the society. Your task is to get this constitution implemented for this vast section of the society. As I said earlier, you can do it by sparing some time from your busy life to examine, discuss the problems of this section of the society, and to come out with new laws, new legal solutions to better their life. They are waiting for you to take the lead, as I said earlier. But it appears that you are busy with your own problems and your own livelihood. We have to abandon this self-centered attitude and be altruistic, at least to some extent, and solve the problems of the society from which we have come, of which we are a part, knowing fully well that unless we better the prospects of this section of the society, this country will never prosper. And therefore, you and I and all others will also never prosper. Those who will prosper are the ones who are already prosperous. But that prosperity will be at your expense. It can be only by exploiting you. Let us therefore ready ourselves to build a society based on freedom, equality, social justice. A society in which there will be not more than minimum necessary economic inequality, where there will be no social injustice, and where nobody will lead a life of indignity. Awake, at least now, before this section turns to violence. We are today talking of Naxalite violence, terrorism, and so on and so forth. Here again, your task is to go to the root of the problem. Why have they become Naxalites? Why have they resorted to militants? They waited for some time. It's not as if they resorted to it soon after independence or constitution. This movement started in 70s in Nanchalbari. After waiting for parliamentary democracy to deliver them goods, some of the social activists, some are lawyers like you, some are doctors, some are engineers, first-class graduates who are leading the Lakeside movement. They thought that the parliamentary democracy which is given by our constitution is not going to deliver goods and services to the masses. They have chosen a path which I don't support. It is a wrong path, it's a violent path. But they have taken to this path because they are frustrated with the implementation of the constitution, the way the ruling class has implemented it so far. Our governance so far has been only for the bettering of the lot of the upper castes. The production of goods and services is for them. The imports of goods and services is also for them. The natural resources are being used for them. They are exploiting themselves and also in collaboration with the foreign MNCs, which is the corporate sector, national, multinational. Today, there is imperialism, the economic imperialism. It is invisible because there is no territorial occupation by any foreigners. Today there is no need for territorial occupation if one has to exploit a country. They can do it sitting in their air-conditioned chambers in their own country and from there take possession of all your resources, whether it is water, electricity, land, mines, jungles. And that is what they have done and they are doing it. In fact, our independence and sovereignty is in danger. And if we don't do our duty to rise to the occasion, we will have soon lost both our independence as well as our sovereignty. The traditional classes are not going to make any move in this behalf because they are happy. They are happy here, they are also happy in the countries which have been exploiting us by occupying posts there. If we have to save our freedom, if we have to save our sovereignty, if we have to save our resources and our country, it is we, the 80% of the society, which has to make a move, which has to start a fight. It is a second war of independence. Independence from misery, independence from poverty, independence from slavery. Unless we do it, nobody else will do it. And if anybody is going to lose, it is we who are going to lose. As I stated, the upper classes have nothing to lose. They are only gaining every day. It is they who are taking the benefit of freedom and the Constitution. So friends, if we don't rise to the occasion, at least now, we will have nothing here but violence and lawlessness. No justice, no courts, no lawyers, no judges. So, what is your job? When the justice itself is on the gallows, you must rush, organize the masses, lead them peacefully to gain their rights and justice and to save this country. Thank you. Allah असेल त्याच्यामुळे सगळं. किती मिनिटं झालं पाहिलं का तुम्ही? Anyway, whatever it is, this will be all right.
15 minutes.
It was a very excellent, sir.
अर्धा तास झाला असेल.
Other than sir.
बस, that is enough.
नाही सर, बस 45 मिनिटं झाला. बरोबर आपण.
I hope they listen to it.
No, you spoke
For 45.
very clearly actually.
सर, खूपच आणि ही गरज आहे सर. आमची अपेक्षा एवढीच आहे सर. कसं आहे तुमचा वेळ आता तुमच्या